Hey friends, my name's Lisa if we haven't met, and if we have, welcome back to my pottery studio. I am very glad you're here today. We have a glazing project to do today, and actually I have to get this done today because I am making a matcha set for my daughter for her birthday, and a few weeks ago I threw the matcha bowls, which I have right here, but they're bisque fired and they need to be glazed. I have a cool design that I'm excited about doing on the inside. And I thought it would just be a good opportunity to share with you a little bit more about my glazing process and how I approach glazing. And I know it's something that most of us generally don't like, but I actually really enjoy it. So maybe some of the things I show you in this video will help you enjoy glaze day as well. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so what I have in mind for this matcha bowl is actually the same design as I've done on the inside of this little serving bowl. And I'm not sure if the color is going to come out for you quite as well here, but it is a lovely teal blue green. I have this ginkgo leaf design in here, like that, which I want to do the same on the inside here. So as she's like, you know, stirring up her matcha, you can look at that. And then I think just a very classic clean white outside. I do fortunately have two. I made a backup just in case. So I'll have two different matcha bowls, and at the end, hopefully I can pick out which one comes out better and put that together with the other little whisker things. And I got her a little kettle, and I'll get her some matcha and that kind of thing. So that's the plan. First thing I need to do is get some wax on the bottom, and I also wax the rim often because I like doing one color on the inside and one color on the outside. And the waxed rim just helps keep a really clean line between those glazes so that they don't overlap. I also like to put down a piece of like newsprint. This is just from like one of these big sketchbook newsprint pads. And that way I don't get wax on my table and it's just hard to clean up. So I'm going to use my banding wheel. I think I will start with getting some wax on the rim. So I've used a bunch of different waxes. I think go with whatever you like, but I have this Amico green wax here. And then my preferred applicator are just these little foam brushes that you can get at the hardware store, in the paint section in the hardware store, sorry. What I do is I'm gonna sort of hop over that rim and come back to it because I want to be a little more cautious. And this just kind of helps get like a nice, clean, crisp line. Just angle my brush a little bit differently. I also find it might be kind of a cheat, but when you put wax on a pouring spout like this, just on the lip, it gives it a little bit of resistance so it doesn't dribble. Because having a non-dribbly spout is always ideal. All right, and then I'm just gonna set this aside, let it dry, and I'll do the other one. Now, oftentimes when I'm on my game, I kind of break up glaze day. I don't typically try to do this, like do all the steps of the glazing all in one day. I think I'll be okay today because I'm only really glazing these two pieces. But usually I will kind of plan ahead and I'll try to wax everything one day, come back. Actually, let me take that back, because the first thing I really do to prep for glazing day is when things come out of the bisque, I will sand them. I'll sand them kind of under the sink. I'll run a little water over them, and I just get like maybe a 120 grit sandpaper, and I just go over kind of all the areas of it, like all around, just check it and make sure there's not any little sharp edges or anything like that you want to take down. You can kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then I rinse it off completely, and I'll let it dry completely before we come back. So I did sand these a couple days ago, so I was thinking ahead there. After that, then I would maybe wax each piece, give them a day to dry. Then I might do the inside, give it a day, then glaze the outside. But today we're doing a lot all in one day because I'm under a little bit of a timeline to get these finished. So let's see if this other one almost dry now. And now I'm gonna wax the bottom. I used to do like a paraffin wax dip where you would like have an electric skillet and you'd melt paraffin wax and then you could just dip your whole foot. That was kind of fun because the only paraffin wax I could find was at like the beauty supply store, and so my studio always smelled like mango or something. But I'd run into problems with that where it would kind of, as you pulled a piece out, it might splatter a little bit and then you get wax somewhere on your pot that you didn't want it. It's a fast approach to getting a lot of pieces, but I'm a little bit type A, and those little spots of wax where the glaze didn't get to would bother me. So I now go with this approach, and it just takes a little bit more time. So the next thing we're gonna get ready for is cutting out the decals to do this little ginkgo leaf design. If you watched my video on the dragonfly mug, this is a very similar technique. So what I have here are some ginkgo leaves that I've printed out on a silhouette cameo, which is basically the same thing as a cricket. So this is a vinyl sticker, basically, a very large vinyl sticker. And I did create this design, but you can buy like SVG files that the Cricut can take off of Etsy. So if you're not, you know, super into that side of it, that's an option. I like to I printed a whole sheet of these because I figured I would use this design and some other things down the road. And so while I was doing it, I kind of like to batch things. A lot of times I will have something particular in mind. Like I knew for this matcha bowl set, I wanted to do ginkgo leaves because it just seemed fitting. And I didn't have any ginkgo leaves, so I had to print these out today. So the process of weeding these, what you want to think about is just what part of the image you want to be resisted. The way I do this, there's two ways you could do it. So you could remove everything except for the positive of what you want, meaning I would leave all the sticker that was the ginkgo leaf outline. What I like to do is actually remove that, and then I put the whole sticker on and I wax over that, and then I peel everything off. And then it's the wax resist that gets into the positive of the sticker. I hope that makes sense. I'll do two so you can kind of see what it looks like. So what I'm gonna do is just carefully come in and peel back the outline of this ginkgo leaf. So it looks like that. Now the alternative would be you could peel off everything except for that outline. So then effectively you could use this sticker as like your wax resist. So you could apply this sticker to your bisqueware, glaze it, and then peel the whole sticker off. That is one option. What I found when I do that is that sometimes when I peel the sticker off of the pot, it actually will pop off a chunk of the glaze with it. And so the reason I don't do this approach anymore so much is because I just found I was going back and having to like clean up the edges of the design with a little, like a fine brush. And I just found that if I do it like this, put wax on the bisque and then peel the whole sticker off before I glaze it, I get a much cleaner line and it's actually less work in the long run. But those two options do exist. Then once I have this, of course, you have to use a transfer tape then to get it applied to your bisqueware. I have had kind of a saga with transfer tape lately. If you go back and watch a couple of videos, particularly the dragonfly video, I'll tell you what my favorite transfer tape I couldn't find online anymore. And I've tried two different ones since. I just found this one and I'm going to test this guy out today. I think that this one is more similar to the one that I've used to use in the past because it's more like a masking tape, which I like. Okay. And then place my transfer tape on top of my image. But with that transfer tape down, what I want to do is just make sure it's really, really well stuck on. And then to make my life easier, I'll generally kind of come and cut around it a little bit. So now this is ready to apply to my matcha bowl. So I'm going to do a couple more and just have them queued up. And then when these are totally dry, the wax is totally dry, I'll flip them over and just kind of lay them out and see what I like the best. So what I'm going to look at is I'm thinking that she will probably whisk with her right hand and probably pour with her left hand. So I'm thinking I want to lay these out on the inside, back, kind of just like that. So I'm thinking maybe two. I could do kind of one up and one falling, or I could do two kind of opposing like that. Ooh, that might look cool. That one feels kind of big though. Ooh, I like that. I like those two together. I might want to overlap this a little bit. Oh, I think that's going to look cool. Kind of like yin and yang. What works pretty well to really make sure that that transfer tape has got a hold of the vinyl sticker is just one of your good old plastic ribs. And that's pretty good. It can be a little tricky on pots that have like a curved surface, as most pots do. And we're just trying to slowly peel off that transfer tape so that the vinyl sticker stays in place. And the more you kind of like push it in, like push it down and pull it back. If you try to just pull it off like this, it's probably going to take some of that vinyl with it. But if you kind of keep it low, pull back. So far, so good. I'm going to go ahead and do the second one too. Full transparency, that was a bit more fiddly. It was giving me a really hard time. I think just because it's on the inside, it's harder. It was harder for me to peel back that transfer tape. We got it. Definitely. That took a bit more effort than what I expected. So what I want to do now, I'm just going to use a hair dryer to put a little heat on this vinyl, and it's going to help make sure that it is really well adhered. The reason that is, the next step, I'm going to put wax over that image, and I want to make sure no wax gets underneath that sticker, because otherwise you will lose that like crisp, kind of clean outline of that design. So all I'm going to do is just give it a little heat that, and then you can kind of feel as it warms up, you press it down a little bit more. All right, and we did all that so we could do this. A little fine brush, and I'm gonna come in and put wax on the image. Gotta be very careful not to get wax anywhere else, so stay in the lines. Okay, these are looking good. They're pretty dry, but I just noticed something that I'm not very happy about on this one, and that is I got some wax resist, because it's probably on my hands or something, on here. And now this will, unfortunately, if I don't do anything about it, oh, I just got more on there. My gosh. This will affect the outside glaze. Even though the glaze I'm gonna do on the outside is just a white, it's still gonna look like it's maybe a little pinholed here or something if I don't take care of that. A lot of times if I get wax on something where I don't want wax to be, I'll just put it back in the bisque kiln, refire it, and start over again. Kind of depends on how far along I'm in the process, because obviously at this stage I don't want to like undo everything I just did, but that is an option. So what I'm going to try to do is take some sandpaper, just sand off enough of that clay body to get underneath where that wax is, and see if I can just get it off. I don't want to get this wet, so I don't want to wet sand it because I want to glaze it. Okay, now that we got that taken care of, the next step is just to peel off that decal, and then we can start glazing. I'm using a dental pick tool. I think I got it on Amazon. I'll link it if I haven't already. Okay, so now we have our surface design, all wax resisted. So like I mentioned, I actually really like glazing because I kind of like doing this little, I don't know, I like these types of tasks. I find them kind of meditative. I like kind of planning out and thinking about, you know, what I want to do with a piece or what color I'm feeling for it or all those things. So often I'll like lay out all the bisque stuff that I have to glaze, and I'll kind of group it by what glaze colors I want to use on each one. If there's ones I want to do decals on, I don't always do decals, but I'll kind of plan it out. And then I just try to avoid having that like one big glaze day where you just feel like you have to get everything glazed. I just don't do that. But I like saying, you know what, I'm going to take some of my studio time today and I'm going to prep. So that might be washing and sanding. That might be just waxing some pieces. All right. One of you just recently shared with me that if you soak these jars upside down in water for a couple minutes, they come off a lot easier, and absolutely true. Great tip. Thank you. I'm going to find out who that was, and thank you personally. But I have my glaze out that I'm going to do on the inside of these matcha bowls. I'm going to use my immersion blender first to get it all mixed up in here. Okay. Just to set myself up better here. I use two things to stir glazes up. My immersion blender first to get everything really well mixed back up. And then I use these dollar store toilet brushes just to keep them stirred up as you're glazing, because glaze does settle pretty quickly. So you do want to keep it stirred while you're using it. I like to have a big pitcher of water with me too, just to keep these in. Hopefully I won't need this again. I'll just put that in there for now. I am going to go in with my hand and just make sure that there's not any like large amounts that are stuck, and we're pretty good. Now I'll go use this brush to just kind of keep it. This helps like scrape anything off the sides. You'll probably be shocked to know that I only have one glaze that I actually have in a 5-gallon bucket. It's the only glaze that I use enough of regularly to have that much stored at any given time. And it's just a basic white glaze. But I usually just keep, this is about I think a 5,000 gram batch of glaze when it's full. And so when it starts getting low, I just batch up however much additional glaze to kind of keep each one topped off. What I'm gonna do on each of these is pour on the inside this would-be green glaze. I'm going to roll it around, and then I'm going to dump it out into this bucket. I used to try to dump it out back into the container, and I would always spill it, so I quit trying to do that. I'll just dump it all back into here, and then it's easier for me to dump it into there afterwards. So when you're focusing on making sure the glaze is getting all over where it needs to go, trying to also focus on where to dump it out, it just takes a level of skill I don't have. You're going to be very careful because you don't want to pour it all over your table. Ask me how I know. Let it sit in there for a couple seconds. I'm going to clean off my hands. So you don't want to get that glaze on the outside. I don't want to set it in there for too long because it might get too thick. But now I'm going to ever so delicately tip it onto each edge. Make sure I get glaze all over there. Just going to pour it out. That probably got on thicker than I wanted it to. God bless. That got on a lot thicker than I wanted it to. Shoot. Here's what I don't like. My decal is completely covered, which is because it's on so thick. All right. This is a lesson learned. So my glaze is too thick. I took too long. I'm just gonna wash this out with cold water. It's gonna be fine. I have another shot on this one, but maybe not today. So I'm gonna wash this out with cold water. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna do a quick test on this to see if the thickness of this glaze is more than what it should be, which might have been what I should have done to begin with. So learn from me. I'm gonna use cold water just because we don't want the wax to melt. I'm just letting the water agitate it because I don't want to take a sponge or anything to it because I don't want to damage my decal. This is really kind of no harm, no foul. I have another shot, but the problem is if your piece is still soaking wet and you try to apply glaze to it, the glaze doesn't have anything to absorb into. Because there's already water in all the little capillaries of the clay body, and so it can't absorb the water, so the glaze can't stick to it. So this is going to be just fine, but I have to give it a day or so to dry out. What I should have done was before to glazing was I should have checked the specific gravity of this glaze to see if it had flocculated or not. And now in this video, I'm not going to go through and explain all of that, but I do have a video. I was checking all of my glazes that had sat on the shelf for like 4 years to see if they would still work. I think the video is called Do Glazes Expire? And if you want to understand what I'm doing next, go back and watch that video or watch it after this video. But it explains a little bit better checking a specific gravity and making sure your glazes are at the right viscosity that you want. I'm going to do that right now really quick. My theory is correct. All right, I'm going to grab some Darvan and some water. I'm going with about a half a teaspoon. And I'm going to add just like 1/8 of a cup of water as well. Not a lot of water. You really don't want to add water to glazes unless you really need to. And I think the other thing that's going to be very important on this one is that I don't let it sit in there for too long. The other thing I'm going to do differently this time is I'm going to pour it out of this cup instead of out of here because I was being so careful. It was just taking me longer, which means there's more glaze sitting in it for longer than I wanted. It resisted like it was supposed to. There's a little bit of cleanup that I'll do, but that's what I was going for initially. And because that glaze was too thick, I wasn't gonna see the design, which, you know, that defeats the whole purpose. So, oh, I got a little bit on the outside, but we will live with it. I'm just gonna take this over to the sink and with a sponge, get that cleaned off, and then we're gonna let it dry before we do the outside. So, whew. So in the few little spots here where it didn't resist as well as some other ones, I'm just coming in with a brush and some water, and I'm just kind of going over it, and it's pulling away some of that glaze, specifically where my brush is agitating it, and that's gonna clean it up pretty well. You wanna be careful because you don't wanna pull too much glaze away, but sometimes if you just get it a little bit wet on top of where that wax is, the glaze will pull away on its own a little bit. Easier to tell when it dries, but I kind of got it pretty well buttoned up. All right, I'm gonna set this over somewhere that I'm not gonna damage it and get this cleaned up. Okay, well, I am kind of bummed because I wanted to get this done today, or at least get them in the kiln tonight, but I do have some time still, and it is not worth rushing it, because whenever you rush glazing, I do feel like the product just doesn't come out as well. Success in glazing is really 80 to 90% in getting the application right. I can still probably come down tomorrow, get the rest of the glazing done, get them fired tomorrow night. I'm still gonna have time for her birthday. And even if it's a little late, I'd still rather give it to her late and done well than, you know, I wouldn't give it to her at all if it was done poorly. So gotta look at it that way. Okay, friends, good news. Our matcha bowls, this one that we had to wash out completely, is now dry. It's actually been 2 days because I wasn't able to get back down here yesterday, but that's okay. I did use the rest of my time on Sunday pretty wisely, and I got some more decals, put on a couple mugs that I'm excited to work on later. So I have a bumblebee coming. I've got my elk that I've tested before in one of the previous videos. I've also got my bear. These will be fun, but I'm not going to work on them much today, I don't think. My goal is just to get these matcha bowls in the kiln so I have a birthday present for my daughter. So I've got my would-be green glaze back out. I'm just giving it a good shake. Now what I have to remember is I don't want it to sit in the bowl too long. That was part of my problem. So I'm gonna pour it into this little cup first, because then it's easier. And we're doing good. We're doing good. The wax is doing its job. I was a little nervous that when I washed this off on the inside Some of the wax was going to be compromised, but I think we're good. It's hard to see because of the green on the green, but I think we're going to have a pretty clean image. Okay, so I'm going to set up now for getting the white on the outside. And this one's a little trickier because I don't want to brush it because I don't think I'll get a very even application around the handle and stuff. Dipping, like I normally would do with a mug. Like a lot of mugs, if I was gonna glaze the outside like this, I just put my hand in there like that and drop it straight down and be very careful. But because of the shape of these and because they have this little pour spout, I don't think that's gonna work very well because the likelihood of that glaze coming in and seeping into the inside is too high. So I'm going to do a combination of, I'm gonna dip the handle and then I'm gonna flip it upside down and I'm gonna pour glaze on the outside. If I just pour over the handle, it's gonna be hard to get the glaze kind of all the way around that handle. So I'm going to dip that first and then I'm going to pour. So that's the plan. So I'm going to see if I can just mix this up with this or if I need to get my immersion blender. I think we're going to be good with that. I can already tell this is a bit thick, so I'm going to give it a little bit of dispersant. I'm starting to dream about when this space gets redone, which is going to be happening in, it's getting started in just a couple weeks. I'm thinking about how to make my glazing area a little bit more efficient so I'm not going back and forth and I just have everything all in one spot. All right, just looking for that to get a little bit waterier. So probably gonna have to just pour all of this out. There we go. I'm gonna be very careful. I just wanna make sure I get that whole handle and I like to do about a 6-second. I'm always constantly stirring. Glaze really settles a lot faster than what you might think that it does. Okay. Okay. Oh, I want to use this as my catch for when I pour the rest of it. So I need to get all my glaze back in here. Oh Lord, say a prayer. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't need to clean that out. So my plan is I'm going to use one of these quart-sized cups, just like so. Let's see, I did this one first, so it's had a little bit more time. I'm going to flip this over like that. All right, I think I got it. I really don't feel like there's too much glaze waste with this process either. I mean, there's a little bit for sure, but at the end of the day, I still think it's worth it just to get the result that you want. That's just me. The last thing I'm going to do for these little babies is I'm just going to come around with my metal rib. I just want to kind of smooth out where there was kind of an overlap of the glazes, just so you don't see that line. Just because even though it's the same glaze and it'll all melt, you might still see that change in thickness. Also, if I have a really thick drip, I will do the same thing. So trying to give it a good keen eye and make sure I'm feeling good about it. Make sure there's not any glaze on the foot that's going to cause a problem. You might want to wet sponge that again. Okay, friends, are we ready? Actually, before I open this, I just want to tell you guys again how much I appreciate you, all of your kind words and all the comments. It just means the world to me, so thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to see how these come out. Oh, I think they're good. The insides look great. Oh, yes. Here's the first one. There's my little ginkgo. I think it came out. This one came out just gorgeous. On the outside, you can still see a little bit of a line from where I double dipped, but stunning. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, this one too. You can see the decal came out just perfectly. I love this color combo. the white. Okay, friends, once again, thank you so much for being here with me in the studio today, over the last couple days. Really, if you got something out of this, I would love it if you gave me a like and a subscribe. It really does mean the world to me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care, friends. Bye.